Hello leaders, I'm Vanessa G. Nelson. Welcome to my 4th Nelson HR Report. I plan to come on every month to have a discussion with you about current HR topics to keep you up to date and make sure you're informed. So let's talk midterm elections. So the question is, what do the midterm election results mean for employers? Well, first of all, there was a record number of women who won seats in Congress, over 100 women, which means there'll be more women in Congress than ever before. So most likely we'll see legislation that deals with pay equity and gender equality, as well as the Me Too movement will probably be impacted as far as non-disclosure agreements. Additionally, we had a record number of young people, people of color, people from the LGBTQIA community, which means there'll probably be legislation in workplace flexibility, as well as sexual orientation and things of that nature. So we want to be on the lookout for those things. Now in Michigan, the voters decided to legalize marijuana, and the margin was 56% to 44%, which tells you that the majority of the voters felt that marijuana legalization was a good thing. Now, what does that mean to employers? As I mentioned in the previous Nelson HR report, marijuana usage cannot violate your policies. So if you had the policies in place, then you should be okay. Now, the next thing is, just want to mention I received a call from John, not his real name, but I received a call from John who asked me, he said, hey, Vanessa, he said, I don't have a drug testing policy right now. Should I have one? And I think absolutely, because your main thing is you want to make sure you have a safe workplace. You know, you want to make sure that you're avoiding accidents in the workplace, workers' comp. So you want to make sure you do have some type of drug testing policy to protect your organization. It also gives you a great image to the community when you have a drug testing policy. Next, I would like to talk to you about the Supreme Court and the Age Discrimination in Employment Law, which is the ADEA. As we discussed in a prior Nelson HR report, we talked about the case Mount Lemmon Fire District versus Guido, where there were 2 laid-off firemen, ages 46 and 54, who were replaced by younger employees. The firemen claimed it was a discrimination lawsuit based on their age. So they filed a lawsuit and stating that it was a discrimination of their age. The employer argued that they were too small to comply with the ADEA and that they only had 11 employees. Well, last week, the Supreme Court ruled in a unanimous 8-0 decision in favor of the plaintiff. It's their first ruling of the new term. So what they ruled is that, and really hear me on this, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, the ADEA, applies to all states and political subdivisions regardless of the number of people the public entity employs. So they expanded the definition. So you want to make sure you keep track of that, because that's going to be very important to your workplace. Now, regarding the ADEA, one thing to remember, leaders, you want to make sure you remember, if you have a situation where you're dealing with a severance agreement with an employee who's over the age of 40, and if you want them to waive their age discrimination claims, then you want to make sure that you consider the Older Workers Benefits Protection Act, which covers them as far as when they're over 40. So you want to make sure that before you have them sign things that you follow that law, because in some situations you have to give a person that's over 40 21 days or something related to that for them to go to their lawyer to make sure that they know what they're signing. So if you have more questions about the severance agreements and how it impacts older workers, you want to call, or you want to go to the EEOC website and search for the older workers and severance payments. Okay, the next topic is sexual harassment I know you hear about it all the time, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Well, the EEOC is working diligently to stop sexual harassment in the workplace. Sexual harassment is costly in a lot of ways. It's costly in litigation, absenteeism, medical expenses, productivity, and it can cause psychological harm to the victimized worker. So the EEOC is really working to stop it. And just so you know, that in the fiscal year of 2018, the claims for sexual harassment were a massive amount more than 2017. So in turn, the EEOC recovered $70 million in claims compared to $47.5 million in 2017. So it's almost double. And I want you to please note this, leaders, that when the EEOC files claims against employers, their success rate in these cases are 95.7%. So it's very serious that you really look at your workplace and make sure that you're doing all you can to stop any type of sexual harassment. Now, I want to share with you 5 ways to protect your organization, and please take a minute to try to make sure that you implement these things. First of all, and I'm sure you know this one, you want to make sure you have a policy and a clear, easy to understand complaint process. You want to make sure employees don't have any obstacles or difficulties filing complaints about harassment. You want to make sure this number 2 is one that a lot of employers miss. You want to make sure that you communicate your policy to your employees. If you have to do it during staff meetings or have a special meeting, however you want to do it, make sure it's communicated to your employees, because if they say they didn't know and you never explained it to them, that could be a problem for you. And number 3, investigate promptly. So you want to investigate as soon as possible, not 30 days from now, not two months from now. You want to investigate promptly. Take these situations seriously. Number 4, hold people accountable. You want to, no matter who it is. You know, I've heard it all. Well, I can't do that to him because he's in this position, or she's been here 20 years. It doesn't matter who it is. You want to hold them accountable. If you find that it's substantiated that it was the situation where someone committed sexual harassment, hold that person accountable. And number 5, you want to ensure that your culture is one where harassment is unacceptable. Now, we can go back to number 4 about holding people accountable. If you don't hold people accountable, you won't be able to have a culture where sexual harassment is unacceptable. So if your culture is the one of which harassment is acceptable, you want to change your culture. So the thing is, you want to make sure you hold people accountable and make sure your culture, it does not accept harassment. And just to add another one, make sure you're providing anti-harassment training at least annually. The EEOC recommends having annual harassment training. So you want to do that. Because leaders, we have to protect our organizations. I just want to make sure you take the time to do that, because the EEOC, if they come knocking, just remember they have almost 100% success rate in these cases. Next, it's time for our tip of the month. Yay, the tip of the month. This month, we're going to talk about holiday parties, because it's that time of year. You know, around this time of year, I usually get calls from 2 or 3 employers that say, hey, Vanessa, my employees have been great this year. We want to have a holiday party. We want to have alcohol. We want to have a good time and show them how much we appreciate them. And they're all excited. And I say, well, I highly recommend against it. I always highly recommend having alcohol, company-sponsored alcohol-related parties. And the reason is because it's just too much liability. However, some of them insist on having one. So I'll say, okay, well, if you just gotta have one, here's some things I want you to do. So if your party is hosted on site, you want to, before the party, you want to read your insurance policy to see if you're covered. Make sure you're covered for accidents or for property damage, anything like that. So before the party, you want to make sure you have the appropriate insurance. Secondly, if you have a party off-site, such as in a restaurant, before the party, you want to make sure you check their insurance to make sure you have adequate coverage. If not, you may need to buy additional coverage for your employees. And this is when you're providing alcohol, or if they're buying alcohol and you're sponsoring the party. Number 2, don't make attendance at the party mandatory. Make sure employees know there'll be no work conducted during the party, because some people don't want to be around alcohol and don't drink alcohol. Number 3, make it clear to employees before the party that overindulgence or other offensive behavior is unacceptable. You want to do that. And then you want to avoid open bars where people can just drink at random. And another good thing is to stop serving alcohol at least an hour before the party is over. And I would even, if you have to do it, I would even suggest having tickets, giving a person a ticket or two, and that's it, But then some people, 1 or 2 drinks is too much, so you just never know. And then the other thing is, make arrangements for the employees to get home safely. So if they've been drinking, you want to make sure there's free cab rides, or call an Uber for them, or have designated drivers, or one of the best things I think you can do if you have to have a party, you could have it at a hotel where people could get rooms and stay overnight. Now remember, leaders, if you do hold a holiday party and you provide alcohol, then you will be on the hook if they leave drunk. Okay? You're going to be on the hook. Well, that concludes our 4th Nelson HR report. My next Nelson HR report will be in January of 2019. Therefore, I want to say to all of you, Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and have a wonderful holiday season. And remember to be safe and take the time to enjoy your family and just have fun. So, see you in January.
Learn how to protect your organization and improve your bottom line. Get your copy of Vanessa's book, 101 Costly HR Mistakes and How to Fix Them. Her book is packed full of real-life experiences and available to you now at Amazon.com or NelsonHRReport.com.